Gumball Watterson, the charismatic protagonist of the Amazing World of Gumball, is a master at turning everyday situations into full-blown hilarious disasters. In The Responsible, he and Darwin take on the seemingly simple task of looking after their little sister, Anais. But, as expected, nothing goes as planned.
Oh, it is on fire.
In real life, child neglect is a serious issue, punishable by law and even the potential loss of custody. However, the show tackles this lightly, showing the house almost being destroyed as Gumball and Darwin try to appear responsible. This unique ability of the show to turn serious issues into comedy is a trademark that appeals to audiences of all ages. Another standout episode is The Prank, where Gumball and Darwin get caught up in a prank war that keeps escalating. The highlight is when their pranks go way too far, causing property damage and, in some cases, putting people at risk.
I can't wait to see the look on his face when he wakes up.
In the real world, this would easily be considered vandalism or even irresponsible behavior, but the charm of the episode lies in how it uses humor to soften the gravity of the situations, inviting the audience to laugh while also reflecting on the limits of ethical behavior. In The Job, Gumball makes the ridiculously absurd decision to pretend to be an adult in order to get a job.
Don't worry, dude.
I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about you. You look like a baby werewolf. No!
Plot is hilarious, with him finding himself in situations that require skills he clearly doesn't have. However, in real life, faking information to get benefits, even for a job, is considered fraud. It's fascinating how the show manages to explore serious themes in such a comedic and accessible way, turning potentially criminal acts into fun moments. And let's not forget that these situations often reflect Gumball's family dynamics. His parents, Nicole and Richard, are often absent or unprepared to deal with the kids' antics, raising questions about parental responsibility. Of course, the show isn't concerned with diving deep into these discussions, but it provides fertile ground for those who enjoy thinking beyond the obvious. After all, what makes Gumball's actions so endearing is this mix of chaos and charm, which challenges our perception of right and wrong. However, there's a curious pattern that emerges when looking at episodes like these. Gumball rarely faces serious consequences for his actions. This is a narrative choice that reinforces the show's light and comedic tone, but it also raises an interesting question about how justice is portrayed in animated shows. Does this immunity of the character contribute to how we view impunity in real life? Or is it just another trick to make us laugh without guilt? This duality is one of the reasons why the show continues to intrigue and entertain at the same time.
Good job, everyone!
Another fascinating detail is how the Amazing World of Gumball uses humor to challenge social norms. The show isn't afraid to show Gumball defying authorities, breaking rules, and even manipulating situations to his advantage. These behaviors, though funny, reflect real aspects of adolescence, the desire to test boundaries and the search for autonomy. Episodes like The Responsible and The Job are great examples of how the show captures these nuances brilliantly, even while exploring the most absurd situations possible.
We can have our own kids, but we're gonna wait until we meet the right person because it's an important decision. But in the meantime, we can.
And, of course, we can't ignore the cultural impact of Gumball as a character. His antics often go beyond pure humor, serving as a light critique of social and cultural norms. In The Prank, for example, the escalation of pranks can be seen as a metaphor for the excessive competitiveness that often defines our social interactions. By exaggerating these behaviors to the point of absurdity, the show invites us to reflect, even if unconsciously, on our own actions.
Do you think he'll be mad, Gumball?
Nah, it's just a small, harmless prank.
Finally, what makes Gumball's infraction so captivating is his motivation. He rarely acts out of malice. His actions are impulsive, yes, but usually driven by curiosity, excitement, or a desire to stand out. This creates an emotional connection with the audience, who can even relate to the character's flaws. After all, who hasn't made an impulsive decision that got out of control? This is where the Amazing World of Gumball shines, by turning human flaws into an endless source of humor and empathy. The legal implications of Gumball Watterson's actions are a fascinating area for analysis, especially since the show does an excellent job of turning questionable behavior into comedic situations.
I wish you didn't have to come to this, Marvin.
In The Watch, Gumball and Darwin find a watch they believe is valuable and embark on a series of adventures to recover it.
And now, little man, I give the watch to you.
During this quest, they end up destroying others' property and trespassing on private property, all in the name of their heroic mission.
I've come for you, Marvin.
If this happened in the real world, they could easily be accused of vandalism and trespassing, crimes that often result in hefty fines or, in more severe cases, even jail time. In The Nemesis, Gumball takes it a step further by manipulating a neighbor who believes he is Gumball's arch-nemesis, encouraging him to take on this role more intensely.
Look, I don't think I'm capable. Just forget about me, like everyone else has.
Should we go?
Yeah, all right.
No, I mean go after.
Yeah, I know. I was just messing with you.
Dude, come back! I'll help you become so evil that you'll grow.
While the episode is hilarious, it raises interesting ethical and legal questions. In real life, manipulating someone to act against their will could be considered harassment, especially if emotional harm is involved. It's fascinating how the show addresses this lightly, using comedy to soften the impact of Gumball's actions, but still provoking reflection on the limits of morality.
Come on, man. Give us something to work with.
How about Dr. Fuzz?
Yeah, or Doctor.
It's more like Dr.
Then, in The Fraud, Gumball discovers that a respected figure in Elmore is actually a fraud. In his typical impulsive manner, he decides to expose the truth in a public and spectacular way.
Please don't tell. He attached $20 to the note. How cheap does it think we are?
However, in the real world, this could be seen as defamation or slander, especially if the accusation is made without concrete evidence. The show uses this plot to explore Gumball's desire for justice, but it also highlights his tendency to act without thinking about the consequences. This contrast between the show's humor and the potential real-life consequences of the character's actions is what makes the Amazing World of Gumball so unique.
I can't believe we lost our jobs.
So this is being an adult, huh?
No money,
No job.
crumbly apartment.
Rent overdue.
Another fascinating point is how these legal implications relate to the show's target audience. Kids and teens watching may not fully grasp the real-world consequences of actions like trespassing or manipulating people, but adults can pick up on these nuances, which adds an extra layer of depth to the story. It's almost as if the show is simultaneously entertaining and educating, even if indirectly. This approach is one of the reasons why the Amazing World of Gumball is so successful at reaching audiences of all ages. Furthermore, episodes like The Watch and The Nemesis raise an interesting question about how society views offenses committed by children. In real life, a Gumball would likely be treated more leniently because of his age, but his actions could easily lead to his parents facing legal consequences. This dynamic between individual and collective responsibility is something the show touches on subtly, but it could be explored further to highlight the complexities of the justice system. And what about how the show uses humor to subvert our expectations of justice? In The Fraud, for example, Gumball is technically right in exposing the fraud, but the way he does it is so chaotic that it almost makes him the villain of the story.
Bongos in the park. That and the sandals just makes me want to eat raw liver.
What if you have a fake diploma?
Well, then you're a...
This reflects an interesting reality. Even when we're morally right, our actions can have unexpected legal consequences. The show brilliantly balances this duality, offering entertainment while also provoking thought. Finally, there's something incredibly human about Gumball's actions. He rarely acts with malice. His choices are impulsive, driven by curiosity or a distorted sense of justice. This trait makes the audience sympathize with him, even when his actions are clearly wrong. After all, who hasn't made a mistake while trying to do the right thing? This balance of humor and reflection is what makes the Amazing World of Gumball so special, not only highlighting the flaws of its protagonist, but also our own.
What are you doing, Principal Brown?
Well, I thought if I was cool and became your friend, you wouldn't tell anyone.
Okay, well, it's a bit weird, but yeah, I guess we could be friends if it makes you feel
In the
better.
Amazing World of Gumball, ethics are constantly challenged and reinterpreted, often through a satirical lens that invites reflection. In The Game, Gumball and his family turn an ordinary moment at home into an absurdly competitive game, where rules disappear and logic gives way to chaos.
Okay, and how do you win?
You don't win, you survive.
Okay.
This episode not only entertains, but also exposes the fragility of the norms that govern human behavior, especially when we're in relaxed settings. It's almost as if the episode asks, do we follow the rules because we want to, or because we have to? This subtle satire is one of the highlights of the show.
Yes! We survived! All the effects of the game have been reversed!
Almost.
In The Lesson, Gumball and Darwin face a detention that turns into an anarchic microcosm. The episode plays with the idea of authority, or rather, the absence of it, while the two characters try to navigate an environment dominated by chaos and impulsivity. This situation is a clear critique of power and control dynamics in school settings, especially when authority figures are ineffective, despite its light tone. The episode suggests that ethics are often a reflection of the conditions we're in, a concept that is as true in the real world as it is in Elmore. And in The Copycats, the series takes a bold step by directly critiquing the lack of originality in the media. The episode is a satirical jab at the practice of copying others' ideas without giving credit or adding innovation, something all too common in entertainment. Gumball and Darwin face a family that literally replicates their lives and adventures, creating a hilarious and thought-provoking showdown.
There they are!
What the?
The ethical message here is clear. Originality should be valued, but more importantly, the episode emphasizes the importance of respecting other people's creativity. This critique, although framed in a comedic context, deeply resonates with current societal issues. The show's satirical tone doesn't just criticize behaviors or institutions, it also turns toward Gumball himself. Many of his actions reflect human hypocrisy, like when he tries to impose ethical standards on others while constantly breaking rules. This contrast is one of the reasons why the character is so charismatic. He is flawed, just like all of us, and his journey is a constant search for balance between what's right and what's convenient. This moral ambiguity, wrapped in comedy, is what makes the show so rich and engaging. Moreover, the satire in the Amazing World of Gumball often goes beyond ethical critique and delves into social issues. In The Game, for instance, the escalation of absurdities reflects the excessive competitiveness that often guides our interactions.
Uh-huh. And what's the address?
420 Grove Street. Oh, and could you add some turkey gizzards?
As well as the ice cream, pig's foot, and oysters?
Yes, it's an old family recipe invented by my grandfather, Old Joe Windy Pants.
Meanwhile, in The Lesson, the episode suggests that the lack of effective leadership can lead to the collapse of social norms, a critique that resonates far beyond the walls of a school. This ability to connect everyday themes with humor and absurdity is what makes the show universally appealing. Another fascinating aspect is how the show's humor never underestimates the audience. While the primary target is children, the writers clearly have adults in mind when they insert layers of satire and social commentary. The Copycats is a perfect example of this. While kids can laugh at the absurd situation, adults can pick up on the nuances of the critique of the entertainment industry. This balance between simplicity and depth is one of the reasons why the show is so widely loved.
Ah, I just made you eat cowboy caviar. Dude, he's standing next to the lychees. Wait, so... Stop it! It makes me want to route with other people.
Ultimately, the ethical reflection in the Amazing World of Gumball isn't there to provide easy answers, but to provoke questions. Episodes like The Game and The Copycats challenge us to think about our own actions and choices, all while entertaining us with the absurdity of the situations. It's a rare and bold approach that turns each episode into an experience that's not only fun, but also intellectually stimulating. If there's one consistent thing about Gumball Watterson's actions, it's his ability to turn the ordinary into the extraordinary, often pushing the limits of what's acceptable. In The Plan, for instance, he and his family come up with a detailed strategy to solve a problem. But as always, the plan quickly spirals into chaos.
Where are they? What are they? Where are they?
This episode highlights a recurring pattern in the series, the obsession with solving problems creatively, but often without considering the consequences. Gumball rarely learns from his mistakes, which creates comedic situations, but also raises the question of how much our impulsive actions shape our lives. Another standout example is The Heist, where Gumball and his friends decide to pull off a robbery, of course, in the comedic and exaggerated style that only the Amazing World of Gumball could present. The episode follows the classic heist movie format, with elaborate plans, disguises, and chaotic execution. However, the pattern here is clear. Gumball and his crew never think about the ethical or legal implications of their actions. For them, the end goal justifies the means, a behavior that, in the real world, could lead to serious consequences. This pattern not only reflects Gumball's rebellious spirit, but also how the show uses absurdity to explore complex themes. Then there's The Rerun, an episode that takes the repetition of patterns to a literal level, playing with the idea of manipulating time to fix past mistakes. Gumball tries to change events to prevent a series of disasters, but each attempt creates new problems. This episode is a brilliant metaphor for the character's stubbornness in avoiding responsibility, a trait that repeats throughout the series.
That's it. I just doomed the guy with no family or friends to an eternity in limbo and made a stupid quip about it. I've become the villain.
It reminds us that, often, trying to fix our mistakes without owning up to them can lead to even more confusion. When analyzing these patterns, it's interesting to note that they not only define Gumball's personality, but also shape the narrative structure of the show. His adventures follow a predictable cycle of cause and effect. He makes an impulsive decision, faces the consequences, and in the end, everything returns to normal. This repetition creates a sense of familiarity that attracts the audience, while the constant element of surprise keeps the series fresh and unpredictable. Furthermore, Gumball's behavior patterns often reflect universal human dilemmas. In The Plan, for example, the quest for the perfect solution often leads to more problems, something we can all relate to in our own lives. In The Heist, the idea of breaking the rules to achieve a goal is a classic theme that resonates with audiences of all ages. These patterns make Gumball not just a funny character, but also an exaggerated representation of our own flaws and impulses. Another fascinating aspect is how these patterns allow the show to tackle deeper themes without losing its light and comedic tone. In The Rerun, the manipulation of time can be seen as a subtle critique of our obsession with controlling the uncontrollable. The episode reminds us that, no matter how hard we try, we can't always avoid mistakes, and learning from them is an essential part of growth. This message, though set in an absurd context, is incredibly powerful and resonant. Finally, the analysis of patterns in the Amazing World of Gumball reveals a narrative consistency that is both comforting and challenging. Each episode offers us a new variation on familiar themes, exploring human flaws in a way that makes us laugh and reflect. This unique combination of humor and introspection is what makes the show so special and unforgettable. The humor in the Amazing World of Gumball is a masterpiece that transcends age and cultural barriers, blending a unique mix of visual absurdities, sharp dialogue, and unexpected situations.
What if this were to go public?
Look, Principal Brown, first, that was a phase. And secondly, we felt ashamed so many times in life that I think we're now incapable of feeling it.
In the tape, for example, Gumball and Darwin decide to make a homemade video, but as expected, things quickly spiral out of control. The episode plays with cinematic cliches, using everything from exaggerated visual effects to hilarious parodies of popular genres. This ability to turn the ordinary into something extraordinary is what sets the show's humor apart, creating moments that are as funny as they are memorable. In The Uploads, the series dives into the impact of social media, showing Gumball and Darwin trying to achieve online fame with absurd and often meaningless videos. This episode satirizes our modern obsession with likes and views, highlighting the almost desperate behavior we adopt in the search for digital approval. The humor here is incredibly relevant, touching on a contemporary issue while maintaining the light and comedic tone that defines the show. It's a smart way to entertain while subtly prompting reflection on the values of today's society. In The Laugh, Gumball tries to figure out what makes something truly funny, exploring different styles of comedy, from physical humor to more refined sarcasm. The episode is almost a lesson on what makes up humor, playing with the idea that comedy is as subjective as it is universal. This meta-commentary shows how the series is self-aware, inviting the viewer to not just laugh, but also think about why they're laughing. This extra layer of depth is one of the reasons why the Amazing World of Gumball's humor is so impactful. The balance between childlike humor and jokes that only adults get is another highlight of the show. In The Tape, while kids enjoy the exaggerated scenes, adults can catch the references to classic films and the subtle commentary on the act of creating content itself. This dual level of entertainment is one of the secrets to the show's success, allowing it to reach a diverse audience without ever losing its essence. It's proof that intelligent humor doesn't have to be complicated, just well executed. Another fascinating aspect is how the Amazing World of Gumball uses humor to address social issues. In The Uploads, for example, the series critiques the narcissism and superficiality promoted by social media, but it does so in such a light and funny way that the message becomes accessible to everyone. This ability to combine comedy with social commentary is a skill that few shows manage to master, making Gumball a brilliant example of how humor can be both entertaining and meaningful. Additionally, the physical humor in the series, like Gumball's exaggerated falls and extreme facial expressions, is an element that never ages. In The Laugh, this type of comedy is taken to the max, showing that sometimes the simplest joke can be the most effective. This style of humor, combined with quick and clever dialogue, creates an experience that is both visual and verbal, keeping the audience engaged at all times. Finally, what makes the humor in the Amazing World of Gumball so special is its willingness to take risks. The show isn't afraid to experiment with different comedic styles, to play with the absurd, and even to satirize itself. This makes it a constantly evolving work that can surprise even the most attentive viewers. Each episode is a unique journey, full of laughs, but also moments that make us think, reminding us that humor, at its core, is an art form. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next videos.